Patriots football is officially back, people. Well, kinda. The Patriots have now played their first preseason game of the year, and there were so many exciting storylines to follow entering this game. New head coaches, new quarterbacks, new weapons. There was just so much to follow. The Patriots faced off against the Carolina Panthers at home in their preseason opener. And both of these teams are coming off of extremely disappointing seasons and are in desperate need of bounce-back years. But honestly, I'm not expecting too much out of either of these teams, and a lot of that comes down to them having first-year head coaches, Drake Maye and Dave Canales. If you're a Pats fan, you know who Mayo is. He was a stud linebacker for the Pats for what feels like forever, and then he got into coaching back in 2019. Ever since, it's really felt like the Patriots have been grooming him to be their next lead guy, and that was exactly the case. Bill Belichick and the Patriots parted ways, and Drake Maye got the head coaching job. It's safe to say that he has some massive shoes to fill. Now, as for Dave Canales, not so much. Canales comes in post-Frank Reich era, and that just really didn't work out the way that I especially thought it was going to. The Panthers traded up and got their quarterback of the future in Bryce Young first overall, and still, things just didn't look good. They struggled badly, and they were the worst team in the NFL. There were a lot of problems with last year's team, but now the Panthers hope that Canales can come in and help try to fix a lot of those problems. Especially, they want him to come in and help them develop their young quarterback. It's safe to say that Canales has a pretty good track record as of late when it comes to quarterbacks. He was heavily involved in Geno Smith's Comeback Player of the Year campaign in Seattle as the quarterbacks coach, and then he went to Tampa to be the offensive coordinator, where he then helped Baker Mayfield revive his career and even go as far as to win a playoff game. Canales had a lot of hype in the offseason, and that's why Carolina went out and got him as their next head coach. He has a lot of high expectations in Carolina now that he's there. But as for week one, it was really difficult to gauge how he coached this team, and especially quarterback, because Bryce Young didn't end up playing. Now, of course, this is a preseason game. It's hard to kind of judge teams based off of what they throw out there preseason week one, but at the very least, we got to look at a couple of new things, especially that new kickoff rule. And I hate to say it because I really wanted to be a traditionalist and hate the new kickoff rule and hope that we go back to the old one, but I actually don't hate the new kickoff rule. It's actually been really fun to watch. I think it's worked out well so far. I do really like that it promotes returning the ball and actually making that aspect of the game a little bit more exciting to watch. A lot of the times before the change, there was really no incentive to try to return the ball, but now there actually is. Enough of my ramble about the kickoff rules. I enjoyed it, but the Panthers got the ball to start off the game. Again, no Bryce Young, but I was really pleased with how the defense started out at least. Dietrich Wise got a sack about 1 minute into the game, which was really nice to see. He's one of our captains, so it was pretty cool to get to see him rolling early in this one. I do think the defense is going to be fine this year. Like, even without guys being there or missing some time due to injuries, I do think this is still a top half of the league unit. After a pretty uneventful first drive from Carolina, we finally got to see what is likely going to be our week one starting unit. Jacoby Brissett is back in New England after we drafted him back in 2016 out of NC State, and it's just so weird seeing him back in a Patriots uniform. I remember watching the Patriots back when he was a rookie, and that was during the whole Tom Brady Deflategate scandal. And if you remember, Brady was suspended for 4 games to start the season. So we got to see a little bit of Jimmy Garoppolo play when he was still with us, and then he got injured, and Jacoby Brissett came in, and I think he started the following 2 games before he got injured. Of course, he didn't do a lot for us in New England, but he then went on to start for the Colts after Andrew Luck retired, and he has a lot of experience, and he's a good vet to have in the building nonetheless. And while he is going to probably be our week one starter, I think a big reason they brought him in was to help develop a young rookie quarterback like Drake Maye. Now, as for him in the game, we didn't get to see a lot of him. He actually went 0 of 3 in his passing attempts, but I do really like what the Patriots were trying to accomplish, especially on the 3rd play of that first drive. Jacoby drops back and gets great protection from the O-line and lobs a pass deep downfield to Tyquan Thornton, who's streaking down the field and beat his defender. Now, it ultimately ended up being an incompletion. I would have personally loved to see Jacoby Brissett lob it even further downfield and catch Tyquan in stride and maybe even score a touchdown off of that play, but it was a really veteran move to kind of throw it a little bit behind him to make Tyquan come back for the ball and try to draw that pass interference call. I want to see more down the field play from this team. It's something we really haven't seen a lot of in the past couple years with Mac Jones behind center, but seeing that play, even though it was unsuccessful, made me feel really good about the Patriots trying to install that into their game plan. But outside of that, it was a pretty uneventful drive for Brissett. Ramondre Stevenson did have a nice 11-yard rush on that drive to pick up a first down, and I'm just so excited to watch him play again. But we even got to see a little bit of his running mate Antonio Gibson on the next drive. And during that drive, we finally got to see Drake Maye take the field in a Patriots uniform. And well, he looked okay, I guess. We really didn't get to see a lot from Maye in his first game. And honestly, that was kind of expected. Brissett only got one drive, and I expected Maye to also get one as well if that was the case. On Maye's one drive, he took 6 snaps and went 2 of 3. Of course, as a fan, I want to see Drake take the field and sling the rock down the field and really showcase that athletic ability that we drafted him for. But I do understand that New England is really just trying to see if Drake Maye can run that offense. It's cool if he can make those big splash plays, but can he run the offense in general? So I get that it was a pretty boring drive, but I understand why. They certainly sheltered him a bit with some of the play calls, but I'm sure we'll see a lot more from him as the preseason continues. Now, there were a couple good plays on that drive, and honestly, I really like the Antonio Gibson signing here. Ramondre Stevenson is a stud, and he's probably our running back 1, but it's also really nice to have a guy like Gibson in the building that can catch passes out of the backfield and is also just a really dynamic runner. I watched a ton of Gibson in Washington. As you guys probably know, Jackson's a massive Commanders fan, so with living with him and doing all this stuff, I've of course watched plenty of Commanders football over the years, and I know he has a bit of a problem when it comes to fumbling the ball, but that didn't seem to be the case, at least in preseason week 1. Who knows what's going to happen come season time. The one pretty good play during the Maye drive was to Gibson. Maye dropped back and was immediately pressured on a designed screen. He tossed the ball to Antonio Gibson, who took it 13 yards upfield, and it looked good. I know it was just a screen pass, but it felt good to know that that quarterback can at least make that throw there. It felt like when Mac Jones was in town, anytime anybody blew on him, he threw an incompletion or an interception. It was just one play. I'm not going to overreact and say Drake Maye's fantastic because he completed a screen pass, but hey, it's been dark times these past couple years, you know? But outside of that one play, we really didn't get to see a lot out of Maye. He only passed the ball 3 times, not much. I was pretty disappointed that we didn't get to see him play more, but again, it's preseason week 1. You don't want to put his body on the line this early on, especially if you have a hunch that he's probably going to play at some point this season, which I personally think he will. The main passer of the game was really Bailey Zappi, who has started in 8 games for New England over the last 2 seasons, and he looked exactly like Zappi looks. He went 12 of 20 for 108 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Zappi is not our starter, and he shouldn't even be close to the starting job. He's a good backup, and I think that's just what he's going to be in the league. But in his defense, he did look more experienced, and he looked comfortable on the field. He had a few good moments, but really the highlight of his time on the field was his passes to Kayshon Boutte. There was this awesome 28-yard pass in the second quarter where Zappi just lobs it up to Boutte, who essentially mosses his defender, jumps up and over him to grab the ball, snags it, turns around, and runs for a few extra yards. And that's what us fans have been waiting to see from him. This is a guy who very much had a lot of high expectations coming out of college, but he was labeled as a head case, and he just hasn't worked out, at least up until now. He was really the star of the show, at least when it came to receivers, and I'm hoping that we can finally see him shape into what we all expected him to be during his time at LSU. But as for Zappi, I think unfortunately he's a victim of his circumstance. In an ideal world, yes, we keep Zappi on the roster as one of our quarterbacks, but we have 4 quarterbacks right now, and I can promise you we're not gonna have 4 quarterbacks on the roster come the season. Zappi could very well end up being the QB3 just because he's been there, he knows the system, etc. But honestly, at this point, I think Joe Milton is making a pretty good case for that to be his job. And he's probably been one of the biggest storylines since game 1 happened. This dude was getting a ton of talk at training camp with his quarterback battle with Drake Maye supposedly, and we finally got to see what he can do on the field in a game type situation. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But was it fun as hell to watch? Hell yes, dude. Joe Milton was just so exciting to watch during this game, and he actually led 2 scoring drives and threw the only passing touchdown on the night. This guy really got the crowd into it, and you could hear it on TV. On Joe Milton's 5th play on the field, he takes the snap and is immediately faced with 3 defenders right in his face. He rolls out to his right, looking downfield for an option to maybe throw the ball, but he's getting chased down and he feels the pressure, so he turns back over to roll left, somehow, some way, gets some block and help from his offensive line, and scrambles for 13 yards. Those types of skills and tools are things that I'm really excited to see out of Drake Maye, but we didn't get to see him play too much, so we didn't get to see those tools. But as for Milton, he got to play and we got to see him showcase everything he has to offer. And it's a lot. This is a good quarterback. Yes, his passing is inconsistent, but he has a rocket for an arm and can create plays with his legs if needed. Even after that crazy play where the crowd was going wild, Milton still wasn't done. He then threw his first touchdown pass to Jackson out of Rutgers. Jackson did this quick little double move and beat his defender. Milton saw him, threw him the ball, even though it wasn't the best ball, he threw it right on the numbers, so Jackson was able to turn around and take off for the end zone. So overall, the Patriots ended up winning this game 17-0 and looked pretty decent overall. It's really hard to judge these teams in the preseason, especially when you know that they're hiding so many things from other teams that they're going to be installing during the regular season. But every game gets more serious, and I assume we see more out of Brissett and Maye in game 2. The Patriots are a young, exciting team that a lot of people are counting out this year. You know, I've seen people predicting as low as 3 wins this year for this team, and that could very well be the case. But if you've watched this channel, especially over the past couple years, you know that I'm an optimist when it comes to this team. I'm gonna assume that they're gonna win at least 6 games. For sure. It's not going to happen. I'm ready to be disappointed. While I don't think the Patriots are even close to being a playoff team, I do think they're going to be better than last year. But there are just so many question marks, and we really don't know how either side of the ball is going to shake out. Obviously, QB is different, whether it's Jacoby or Maye, but so is wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne didn't play in game 1, but he will be back for the regular season. But there's one guy that won't be returning this upcoming season: Juju Smith-Schuster. The Patriots released him after giving him a 3-year, $33 million deal in March of 2023. He was really just never able to find his footing in New England and just feels like another wasted contract, which honestly I think was a big reason why Belichick did ultimately leave New England. Some of the contracts he gave out during the back end of his time there were just awful. Let's just look at a couple that didn't exactly work out. Devontae Parker, 3-year, $33 million deal. He played in New England for 2 seasons and had less than 1,000 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then Nelson Aguilar, who we gave a 2-year, $26 million contract to. In 2 years, he had 830 yards and 5 touchdowns. Then, probably the worst of them all, Jonnu Smith, 4 years, $50 million to do absolutely nothing and sit on the bench and then go to Atlanta and somehow turn back into a good football player. And now Juju. Schuster finished his time in New England with 29 catches for 260 yards and just a single touchdown. If New England wants to eventually be a contender again, they have to stop giving out these shitty contracts. And I think the new regime knows that. This really is a completely fresh start for New England. And priority 1 as of right now is going to be protecting and developing Drake Maye to become your next franchise quarterback. And I, for one, sure hope they can, because I can't do another Mac Jones.